Welcome to this episode of The Good, The Bad, The Odd One Out with your host Mark. Right, we finish up the Star Trek, the original series run now. There's only 4 left actually, but I want to talk about those 4 and then talk about the very worst and the very best of the classic series. Give you a rundown. But we're getting to these last 4, season 3, 21 being the first one. This one was called The Cloudminders. Now this had an interesting enough premise. It was kind of a riff on the Morlocks and Alloy in the Time Machine, or possibly the Under Race and Master Race classes in the Metropolis movie. You know, the old black and white movie. And there's even a city in a cloud, which looks a bit goofy, but it kind of reminds you of Cloud City in Empire Strikes Back. However, the whole episode was quite inconsistent and quite kind of incoherent. It's basically a plot about the thinkers versus the doers, you know, framed in a rich class versus a minor caste kind of system. Now, there were minor costumes in this that were kind of cool. Some of the costumes we've got we've had so far in Star Trek have been really goofy and weird and just not unbelievable. But the minor outfits in this are kind of cool. They reminded me a bit of the outfits that Khan's people wore in the Wrath of Khan. I wondered if they were modelled on these, but they kind of looked a bit like that. But then we saw the outfits of the ruling class. They were ridiculous. And the problem with it was woefully inconsistent. It felt like almost every scene was written by someone different. And there was no running theme. The themes kind of changed, and the sort of focus of the scenes kind of changed. There was also a goofy film with Shatner, where his wig goes from being kind of normal to like a really bushy wig right in the middle of the fight and back again. It keeps changing. It's really odd looking. And this one was kind of different from others in that both Kirk and Spock get kind of their own woman. And there's also an odd scene where Spock monologues about what's going on. It's like Spock's inner voice talking to us directly and relating the events, which was kind of odd. Wasn't a fail or anything, it just was odd. But there was one who was really fancied Spock and was kind of asking about his 7-year cycle and if there's any way to break it and stuff like that. It was kind of fun. But overall, this was not a good episode. Right, number 22, The Savage Curtain. Now, this was a bit goofy and crazy. It was kind of a semi-retread of Arena and the Gamesters of Tuscallion, I suppose, where aliens were like pitting people against each other for kind of entertainment, but not quite entertainment. It's more trying to understand the nature of things. Basically, they create a team of good guys, which included Abraham Lincoln. We see Abraham Lincoln in space at one point. And wrestling, and versus a team of the scum of the galaxy, Genghis Khan, including that Carlos the Unforgettable, who I think appeared in other episodes in the Star Trek universe, certainly not in the original series, but I think so. It was kind of cool. It had Lincoln and wrestling and goofy stuff like that, and the Lincoln character was kind of cool, but it was really, I got the feeling it was, oh man, we've got to have Lincoln in an episode, how can we do that? In the end, was abrupt and kind of ridiculous, so poor again. Number 23 of season 3 was All Our Yesterdays. This was kind of a step up. It did feel like there was a few different stories jammed together in this, and they were kind of using costumes they found in the props department to sort of do things. And there was a bit where Kirk kind of goes to some sort of medieval England, but everyone who talks has got a different dialect, and quite obviously an American copy in the British dialect. Or it was just odd. There was even a guy who looked a bit like Charles Lawton. He wasn't bad actually, he was alright. Now that was the weaker part of this section, but there was another section where Spock and McCoy ended up on this like frozen tundra, and this woman found them, and she was a really good looking woman. I can't remember her name. I think it was Mariette Hartley. She's done, you if you've watched any amount of 60s or 70s American TV, you definitely recognise she's quite a striking, elegant woman. And basically, she's stuck on this tundra, and her and Spock kind of start a relationship. And there was a weird kind of logic thing that if you went back through the portal, if you hadn't been conditioned, you'd die if you went back. But it turned out that you had to be conditioned to the new environment to leave, and it's only then you can come back. So it turns out Kirk and Spock and McCoy had to get back, otherwise they'd die. But also whoever was there on the other side in these different times couldn't return with them. Anyway, Spock had this relationship and was tempted to stay, and that kind of bit really worked quite well. It was kind of a downbeat ending, which I liked. It was kind of different, because Spock had to make the choice of. For some reason, I think Spock could stay, but he had to decide whether to or not. And if he didn't, she'd be left there alone forever. But it was 5,000 years in the past or something like that. And there was this whole thing about it was a library, but the library had these sort of like these CD things you could look in and see pastimes, and then you could escape into them. As I say, the Kirk element wasn't great, but the Spock and McCoy stuff was kind of cool. Also, the Charles Lawton lookalike that helped Kirk had a better wig than him. It was kind of cool. I like the idea. I'm pretty sure this library thing must have been in the expanded universe of Star Trek. It must have come up again. It's kind of too good a story to waste. In fact, it would make a good sort of plot for a whole TV series. A place where you could escape into different times. Kind of cool. Good one, actually. This one pretty solid. It's not a classic or even very good, but it's pretty good. I kind of liked it. Right, last one ever of the original series, Turnabout Intruder. Now, yeah, this one was bad. Basically, a woman who's been on this planet with another sort of guy, swaps bodies with Kirk, so she becomes the captain of the Enterprise while he's locked in her body, and he kind of and the Kirk woman symbiote tries to keep the female Kirk under sedation all the time, but Spock and Scotty notice, and McCoy notice the captain's irrational behaviour. Now, this is kind of a reactionary episode. The whole plot, I think, is focuses on a woman is a psychotic harpy if she gets the sort of power that's available to a man, she can't handle it. That's the kind of vibe of it. It's very reactionary, more reactionary than even the Way to Eden, the space hippie thing. Not a great send off this. The dialogue's flat. Mostly, this is a terrible episode, but I'm not rating it as terrible because actually Nimoy had some quite good scenes, and he always sort of delivers, doesn't he? It's really because Nimoy has a few good moments in this. It just about scrapes into the weak, or not. Or let's say it's certainly not passable. I'd say it's weak. Weak is the best way to describe it. It's for completists. It's not terrible. It just about gets out of that sort of bracket. So that is all of Star Trek gone through. Now I'm going to go through some of what I consider classics, and also the ones I would call terrible. So we're not going to talk about Turnabout Intruder because it just about scrapes out of that. There's only 2 episodes I consider truly terrible, actually, which is pretty good in a 78 episode full run, and that's one called The Empath, which I covered last time, which was just awful. It was just there was just music, nothing went on. It was just boring as anything. That was my second to the bottom one, actually. Now that means that certain ones that are often talked about as the worst actually escape this. Spock's Brain's one of those, for example. Actually, Turnabout Intruder is offered to count as one of the worst ones ever. I like Spock's Brain way more than these ones in terrible, and even that to me is 75th out of 78, so Spock's Brain doesn't rate that highly, but even that was better than these two I'm going to mention. So the Empath was the second worst one, but the very worst one was the very final episode of season 1, which is called The Alternative Factor, about a guy with a funny beard having like almost like an anti-guy with a funny beard. They kind of occupied the same space but in different dimensions. It was kind of weird. It was a really stupid effort where they overused music and sound to try and get their points across, which was the suffering of the Empath, actually. Both pretty drastically bad episodes. Right, in terms of classics, I've actually got 17 different episodes. I'm going to just skirt through the first 10 to 17, 11 to 17, just to give you a feel, and then go into the top 10 in more detail. 17th was Patterns of Force. The easy way to describe this is the one where they go to the equivalent of Nazi Germany. I really like that episode, it's kind of cool. Number 16 was Space Seed, which is the prequel to Wrath of Khan. I think that's kind of self-evident. Number 15, I think, is Charlie X, which was an early episode about psychic skills and a young lad. It's kind of a cool episode. It's got the unbelievable sight of William Shatner wearing red tights and topless. Number 14 is A Taste of Armageddon. It's the one where people willingly go into these destruction booths so that a real war can't be waged. It's cool. Number 13 was Miri, the one with Kim Darby as the girl leading a pack of children. There's a few where children are involved as the antagonists, and this one, and they're both pretty good, but this one I think this is the better one. Next one after that is The Naked Time. That's the one where Sulu is sword fighting topless. That's enough said about that. And let me just count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 11, just about misses being in the top 10, is Arena, the one where he fights the big lizardy guy on the planet. That's a cool one. It's a very odd episode, isn't it? It's almost in 3 distinct parts, but it's a very memorable episode. Right, now we're getting into the top 10 classics. Alright, after that, number 10 is Mirror, the one where there's a parallel universe. It's the one with a beardy Spock and an evil Sulu and stuff like that. It's kind of a very cool episode and memorable. Spock looks really iconically good in that, in my opinion. Then number 9 is Devil in the Dark. This is another classic. The rock beast that sort of is killing miners, and it turns out that it's because they're destroying its eggs. That's kind of a cool episode. Square of Gothos is next, number 7. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're on the wrong podcast. So Square of Gothos is kind of a cross between Q and Liberace. It's kind of cool. Number 6 is The Enemy Within, the one where Kirk goes for a transporter that's malfunctioning, and we get a good Kirk and an evil Kirk. Really superbly written episode. This, it sort of says something deeper about the nature of man. I think how good and evil must coexist, because the evil, the irrational actually provides the drive, so the good can sort of do things. It's kind of cool. Number 6. Oh, this is all my opinion. It could be someone else's, completely different. This is all my opinion. I want to stress that. Number 6 is Balance of Terror, the one where it's effectively submarine commanders in space. Mark Leonard's in it, not as Spock's father, but as a Romulan commander, and he's kind of trying to outwit Kirk. It's kind of a cool one. Number 5. Now this is interesting. This is the only season. No, that's not true. Sorry, my mistake. This is one of the season 3s that hit my top 5. In fact, there's 2 of those, surprisingly. And this is the Tholian web, the one where a web is getting built around the Enterprise as they're trying to figure out and save the captain, who's kind of phasing in and out from a different dimension. Number 5 is the Corbomite. Maneuver. That's a fairly cool one. Again, it provides a classic element of that weird skull-like head that you see at the end of a load of episodes, getting into a battle of wits with Kirk, and I do like the fact, I think Kirk in it midway through, Spock makes the observation it's like a giant game of chess, and Kirk turns around and says no, more like poker, and plays it with the bluff. Number 3 is a season 3 episode, and it's Spectre of the Gun. This is rated as number 1 in a lot of various sort of forums, and I'm not surprised. There's something about this episode. It's just superbly balanced. It's superbly written. There's not a wasted frame. There's not a wasted line. The acting's really top notch. Everything about this particular episode really works well, and it sort of contrary to the belief that season 3 produced a load of turkeys, which it didn't. It produced way more than, in terms of ratios of good to bad, than season 1 and 2, but there were some good episodes in season 3, and I don't mean just these few I'm mentioning here. I think there were at least 6 maybe good to excellent episodes in season 3, which isn't bad for 24. Anyway, back to this Spectre of the Gun. This is it's just a really terrific episode, this. Number 2, my number 2 is City on the Edge of Forever, which consistently gets rated as number 1. There's one I like more, but this is my personal opinion. But number 2 is City on the Edge of Forever, where Kirk and Spock have to go back to the 30s on Earth, meet Joan Collins, and sort of try and stop McCoy interrupting the flow of time and allowing the Nazis to win the war and stuff like that. There's not much to say about this. It's just a really, really great episode. But number 1, in my opinion, is Amok Time, which we actually, Sam and I covered way back in like episode 7. So we're talking about 3 years ago. We did a commentary track on this particular episode. It's the one where Kirk and Spock have to fight to the death because Spock's got pond fire upon him, and he has to return to his home planet and marry his betrothed. Man, there's so many great elements in this particular episode, but I just really like the central conflict going on here. And it's kind of cool to see Vulcan too. So that's my view of the worst and the best of the original series Star Trek. I hope you've enjoyed this one. There are several you can go back and listen to if you haven't heard any of the ones before this, or not many of them. I started with season 1, episode 1, and moved through. I do intend to carry on with this, but my next one will probably be the animated series, and I won't be doing that in several parts. I think I'll just watch every one of this animated series and just talk about the best and worst. I'll probably run through the lot and sort of try and reprioritise them, but that's going to be a while because I think there's 26 to watch, so it's going to be a while from now. But I do intend to return to Star Trek and talk about it in the good, the bad, and the odd one out. Okay, that's enough from me. Bye.